Okay, Sunday, 14th of July, 2024. So, forgiving others for not teaching you things that they themselves could not teach. So, one thing I've come to realize in life, people tend to say, oh, if only we were taught this in school, or if only my parents taught this, or if only I'd learnt this when I was young, or 5, or 15, or 20. If only, if only, if only. That's very valid in a sense of we want to learn and grow and shorten the learning curve. So we make fewer mistakes over the long term and we grow as fast as possible. We learn. Very important. But fundamentally, we can't really be angry at people for not teaching us things they themselves didn't know. So people tend to say that school, oh, they didn't teach us about finance or money or whatever else. When I was young or years ago, oh, it's the school's fault, oh, it's a conspiracy and all that, which is fine, understandable, but worth understanding, worth considering that how can someone, the teacher, teach you about money and finance if they themselves didn't know anything about money or finance, for whatever reason, their own fault, their own bad decisions, bad luck, for whatever reason, or just didn't pursue knowledge and career set in finance, they went some other field, just by chance, because not everyone can know everything. Fair enough. So how could the teacher have taught you things that they themselves didn't know? Likewise, you could say, well, why didn't my parents teach me this 20 years ago? Oh, they should have taught me this. Or why didn't this? Why this? Why that? Why this? Same idea, same consideration, same caveat applies. What if they didn't know about it? What if they didn't learn these things? Well, remember, years ago, YouTube wasn't around. Internet and Wikipedia and ChatGPT, all these things weren't around all these years ago. So you could say it's still possible, but then, maybe then it was just harder to find the research, the library, or having to dig up these things physically in an archive, whatever else, to learn all these things. Fair enough. So there's a reason. There's a reason why these things didn't happen. It's not out of malice. It's not out of spite or anything. It could simply be the person didn't know. Case in point, you could say, oh, how can I teach you how to play the piano? How can I teach you how to play the piano if I don't know how to play the piano myself? See what I mean? That's the thing. And then interesting, I came across a very interesting concept recently, or rediscovered this thing called Occam's razor, I think it's called. I forgot the name exactly. Occam's razor, something to that effect, where the simplest solution, the simplest idea is quite likely the truth. What is the simplest explanation to X, Y, or Z? Well, it's probably because this, the simplest thing. It's probably this, probably that. Fair enough. So that's an interesting thing to consider. Why didn't people teach me this 10, 20, 30 years ago? The simplest, and there's loads of others that are yet to be enumerated and articulated, but a simple reason would be they didn't know it. Very interesting. Yeah, how could someone teach you something if they themselves didn't know it? Likewise, they could not have imparted. So likewise, to expand on that logic, the knowledge, they could also not have imparted the discipline, the curiosity, the awareness, the humility. These things you'd have to develop yourself and have to foster in yourself, in a sense of, take AI for example, ChatGPT. We have to foster in ourselves their own curiosity and the communication skills to be able to articulate what we want in the prompt to get what we need. So where does that curiosity come from? Well, we have to develop it in here, perhaps, in the mind, heart, or soul. It has to come from you somewhere, metaphorically, physically, mentally, spiritually. It has to come from somewhere. And these three are good places to start. So especially here with our intelligence, learning, reading, studying, and all the rest, videos, you name it, books, whatever else, to learn and grow. And that's very important. They did not have it. If they didn't have it themselves, how can they give it to you? Right? If they were not disciplined in their life, if anyone wasn't disciplined in their life, how can they impart wisdom or knowledge or inspire you in a sense of discipline? If someone's not organized in life, how can they teach you about being organized? Now, you could, interestingly, in that example, there's a very nuanced way of looking at it where they might know how to be organized in terms of the rules and principles, but it's not in their heart. They haven't internalized the behavior and they're not acting it out. So they know what to do, but they're just not doing it for any reason. Again, what's the simplest reason? Laziness, things like that. So interestingly, so because I was thinking about this a few days ago, and I realised that when I was very young, I had an interesting opportunity to go into a certain study field, into this field of study over here. And then also when I was younger as well, 15, 16, I could have gone in this field as well. Now, so back then the idea is people could not have imparted the knowledge or discipline or awareness to go into those fields, or even foster that within me, because they themselves may not have had the ability to recognize that talent, or ability to foster that talent, or even ability to how to pursue it. I want to do this, but I don't know where to go. What would you study at university? Or would you go to university? Or how would you? I don't know, they might think. And if they don't know themselves, how can they impart it into me? And then you could say, well, it's missed opportunity 10, 20, 15 years ago, which is a fair point. But then you could also argue, well, what regrets have I got today? None. Now, it would have been nice, but it's not a major lamentable regret. This would have been cool, that would have been cool. Yeah, who knows? But no regret. I'm not tearing my heart out, or my soul isn't yearning for it. Again, these emotional sides of you, they're not suffering. Suffering being the key word there. Especially when you combine that with clarity, as I said before on this channel in the past, clarity. I want this over there, not that, not that, not that, not that, not all these, but I want specifically that in life. So then, when you know what you want, and therefore by logical extension what you don't want, then these are the things in the past. Are they these missed opportunities, let's say, are they compatible with that idea you have today, that goal, that mission, that purpose, that value, that objective? Yes, no, maybe. You tell me, comment below, you know what to do. If they're not, then there's even more reason for not having any regret. And that's powerful in and of itself, no regret. But also, another thing we can say is, well, how compatible are they? Well, with this, I would not be very mobile. I'd be I'd be in an office, and over here, I could be working abroad a lot, and maybe just in one country and whatever else. But so they have some nuances to it, but it's not ideal. It's not fully compatible with the goal today. The goal that came from here, here, and here over the past, say, 10 odd years, I've been working towards with the discipline, knowledge, and awareness that I developed by myself. Fair enough. Had to come from somewhere again. And then these, well, no regrets. Even more reason to have no regrets, because they don't match exactly or sufficiently with what I want. So then you can say, well, it doesn't matter then 10, 20, 15 years ago if I weren't taught about these things or fostered these things, the knowledge of this or that, because today, by today's standard, it's very ad hoc, or post hoc or ad hoc. By today's standards, like, they're not compatible fully or sufficiently with what I want. Therefore, less regret. Therefore, it seems easier to be able to forgive people. Yeah, forgive in a loose word. Forgive people for not teaching you things that you yourself did not learn 10, 20, 30 odd years ago. Fair enough. But also, you can go one step further and say, well, you wanted to learn this thing 10, 20 years ago. So within reason, of course, why not learn it now? You wanted to learn about, why didn't I learn about finance 20, 30 years ago? Well, why not now instead? Better late than never. They say, there's an old saying, better late than never. Good point. Of course, within reason. I want to do a video about that as well in the future, within reason. Because there's always some margin of error. There's always some wiggle room in life, I've come to realise. This kind of works, but there's a margin of error. There's a range where there's an acceptable range of functionality, basically, where it still works. This angle or that angle or this degree, it still works. But any excess, and it doesn't work as much. There's a happy medium, so to speak. But that's going nicely off topic. But yes, forgiving others for not teaching you things they themselves did not know. How can someone teach you something if they themselves don't know it? How can I teach you how to play the piano if I myself can't play the piano? Fair enough. But otherwise, you will see me tomorrow.